Hello and welcome back. In our next panel, leading news organizations will reflect on the state of immersive journalism. Key points include telling use of interactive narrative, ethical considerations, what media are versus VR for stories, processes which are worth turning into experiences. So, in welcoming the panel, and again, we will hopefully have time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. And welcome to the panel.
Great. Welcome, everybody. My name is Laura Hertzfeld. I'm director of the XR Partner Program at Riot. I work with Verizon Media Group brands, including Yahoo News, Huffington Post, and many others on immersive storytelling. And we have an amazing panel here to talk about kind of the challenges and opportunities that immersive and XR present for journalism. So I'm going to quickly introduce our panelists. We're each going to talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing recently, and then we'll get into a really, I think, productive discussion, and excited to hear your questions at the end of this as well. So we'll hopefully have some time for that as well. To kick things off, I'd like to introduce Ray Soto. He's the Director of Emerging Technology at USA Today and GANNETT, based near Washington, D.C. Next, we have Yuliya, and I don't want to screw up how I say her last name, so I'm going to let her jump in for me.
Parshina-Kottas.
Thank you. Parshina-Kottas. She is the graphics and multimedia editor at the New York Times, focused on immersive storytelling. And we also have Edwin Rodgers, who's the founder of a VR Video, which is a 360 innovation-focused technology production company. So I'm going to let Ray kick us off and tell us a little bit about what's been happening at USA Today.
Thanks, Laura. So yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of AWE as well, and especially to be amongst these other great leaders within the immersive journalism space. To provide some context as far as who we are and what we do at the USA Today Network, I lead a very small team of innovators, specifically former video game developers who are responsible for figuring out what can we do with emerging technologies as it's applied to immersive storytelling. And this has been a 6-year journey for us. Back in 2014, we worked on our first immersive interactive VR experience built on DK2. And between then and now, we've been exploring how can we enhance these interactive experiences, leveraging these technologies as they continue to evolve. And throughout that time, we've quickly determined that there are 2 words that really guide everything we do: explore and discover. They're both work very well with one another. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is provide our audiences the opportunity to explore and discover stories through interactivity. But why augmented reality? For those of you who might not know, USA Today has a rich history of innovation, and we continue this legacy by exploring VR and AR and beyond. But what is our signature? You know, as former video game developers, we wanted to make sure that we were providing value. And what I mean by that is doing something a little bit different beyond the gimmick of just a standalone 3D object. So we started to incorporate interactivity. We build everything in-house when it comes to 3D assets, photos, videos, particle effects, and on from there. And what we ended up doing was integrating Unity as part of our, for our development process, and it's also integrated within the USA Today app. So we wanted to make sure that we provided that well-rounded experience. And with all of those robust features, we've noticed increased engagement, which has been fantastic. We average around 90 seconds per experience, and we've seen spikes as high as 4 minutes. And for anyone who does mobile app development, those are really strong engagement numbers, but specifically within our industry, when you think about depth and the amount of time by users within a story, we're really, really encouraged by what we see. Laura, if you can get to the next slide.
Yep. There we go. Yep.
Great, thanks. So specifically on augmented reality, we've been pretty busy. Over the past 2 years, we've created 20 unique AR interactive stories within the USA Today app, reaching close to about just under 25 million seconds of total engagement. Which is fantastic. And what we've noticed even more encouraging for us is engagement is growing. And what we've seen over the past couple of months, since we've all gone to this whole remote work, shelter in place, we've built 3 unique projects, all conceptualized, built, and published remotely. And they've been our strongest engaged with pieces that we've ever released. Just looked at the numbers this morning, and for those 3 projects, we've hit just over 5 million seconds of engagement. So again, it's continuing to grow at a much more rapid rate, which is telling us that our audiences and others who are coming to our platform for these types of stories understand it, they get it. And we're doing that based on understanding what we want to do from a user experience flows. We want to make sure that they are very familiar. But we can't stop there. Ultimately, what we do want to do is evolve with the technology and the audience. And we do this by continuing to explore new and diverse storytelling opportunities. Some of the examples that you see here, we've done a COVID-related piece, highlighting aerosol particles and how they kind of flow in and out of masks. We've done another piece featuring the Women's World Cup team, specifically Alyssa Naher. And within this experience, a user is actually invited to step in her shoes, and you'll see an animated athlete kicking a soccer ball as a penalty kick of up to 80 miles per hour. And also the Apollo 11, 50th anniversary from last year. But we've done a very, very diverse field of types of stories. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to continue building upon that. We want to scale our capabilities. We want to support new features. And what we really want to do is, we want this content to live elsewhere outside of just the USA Today app. I mean, it's great for our audiences, but we do see bigger opportunities. So it's great to see other folks talking about web AR and other applications on platforms that we can distribute to. So it's something we're really, really excited about. And if you're interested, I encourage you all to download our app, give it a try, follow our work, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to share with you all. Thank you.
Great. We move on to Yuliya.
Hello. Well, that was an amazing presentation. You guys did such incredible work. I've been part of the immersive storytelling team since about 2015, when we started doing our 360 video work. In about 2018, early 2018, we published our first AR experience on sports and Olympics, and we've covered pretty much every topic ever since then. We've done science and breaking news. We've played around with volumetric video and started getting more into infographics and abstract representation in space. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. I didn't realize USA Today made 20 stories. That's so impressive. I think we're somewhere in the 16 or 18 range. I've lost track now, but we've done a lot of experimentation in 2018 and 2019. And for the past 6 months or so, started thinking about how to better integrate AR into the rest of our platforms, including web AR and just making more interactive experiences WebGL, and just connecting things with print and thinking of stories in a more kind of holistic way. I've I think showed three video examples that are playing in the background. But they're kind of a small representation of the kind of work we do. We do things that are more, as you see in this piece, which was about social distancing and what 6 feet looks like in your space, which is more abstract. This is an example of the Duma chemical weapons attack piece. This is a volumetric video that we've done, and slew of others that have been done in the past. We've learned a lot. We've changed the way we think about the medium, and we look forward to seeing what happens next.
Great. Thank you, Yuliya. Moving on to Edwin.
Hello, my name is Edwin Rodgers, and I'm the founder of VRvideo.tv. I've been doing a lot of 360 content creation since I got my first DK1 back in, I think 2014. And so what I've primarily done is a lot of work for brands as well as NBC News. I'm not sure, there's not anything that I'm going to show that is my work, but if you want to check out vrvideo.tv, you can see it. But I've done 12 Broadway shows, for example, where we put the 360 camera on the stage of a full dress rehearsal of a Broadway show like Anastasia, Beetlejuice. And that I think is really pertinent right now because Broadway is closed, and so you're only going to be able to get one song and one scene, but we were able to capture it in a way that you're actually on the stage, an experience that you can't get even if you pay the highest price for a ticket. So a lot of my journalistic work has been for NBC News and I think that what I wanted to showcase a little bit is where I see the future of journalism and filmmaking in this new kind of like world environment at post-COVID. There was an amazing concert that happened in Finland that was attended by 1.7 million people. This small country, but like half the country went to see this rap concert. And then as you can see, there was pretty much avatars. This was done by Zohan in Finland and their amazing group. And what I see here is like people actually enjoying a concert as a VR avatar, but also for broadcasters, they were able to broadcast this in real time with real-time graphics. All the animation that's happening is all happening in real time. And I think that is very powerful. I think that's where I see the direction of the culmination of the dream of AR real-time rendering being able to be something where you can manipulate a world. So I really am excited about, this is where I'm working on creating stories using virtual worlds and real people.
Terrific. Thank you, Edwin. I'm going to quickly talk for just a second about some of the work we're doing at Riot, and then we'll jump into the conversation a little deeper. We're somewhere in between where Yuliya and the Times are and where Ray is as far as number of projects that we've launched in AR over the past year or so. I think we're around a dozen. And we started building within the native Yahoo News app to really build distribution opportunities for our news partners. Yahoo News is about 80% aggregated content. And so our thinking on this was really, how can we offer this opportunity that we're building to those partners who are already getting a lot of distribution on our platform? We've worked with Ray. We did this project together, the Andrew Yang in AR that you see there. And we also worked with Time on landing on the moon. And then with the LA Times just in January, we used Tiltbrush to build some really cool versions of iconic Oscar dresses that you can kind of put yourself in and share. So we've kind of done a wide range of things with our partners, really based on our skill set and then how it complements where those news partners come in and what they want to build and share and work on with us. Lately, we've really been focused on an immersive platform on our side using WebAR. And I'm going to just put these QR codes up there. And if you want to pull out your phone and pull them up or take a screenshot and check them out later, feel free to pull up the two latest projects that we've done on our platform in WebAR. One is with Reuters, and it's about plastics pollution, and you can kind of see the rate at which we're throwing out plastic bottles. And the other is kind of similar to the one that Yuliya and the Times did as far as showing what 6 feet away looks like and how you can kind of do that in your space while also connecting with another person. So we called it Keep This Space Safe, and that was for Yahoo Life. So I just wanted to kind of jump right into the conversation. I think we all have a lot of exciting things to talk about that we're working on at our organizations, but also have some really unique things that we've dealt with in the last few months of this pandemic and lots of other things. So to jump right into it, I think one of the things that we always ask ourselves and that we talked about kind of in our pre-call for this conversation was, you know, what makes a good candidate for an AR story, for a VR 360 story? Sort of what's your process? How do you narrow things down? And how do you approach the storytelling of it? Who wants to kick us off? Right, you want to kick us off? You seem ready to go.
Yeah, so you know, I feel like our process isn't necessarily all that different from what others go through, but everything really starts off with kind of a pitch phase. And what I mean specifically by that is, it's, you know, folks, you know, reporters, you know, editorials team, you know, reaching out to us to really kind of brainstorming an idea. You know, how might we be able to take a story and have AR be a component of that story and provide value to it as well? So really it starts off with, you know, just a simple pitch. And through that process, we'll start to develop some conceptual mock-ups, possibly build a prototype, you know, a white box Unity experience, and really just test things out. Because as I mentioned on that first slide that it's shown, every project that we work on, we want to provide, you know, we want to answer 2 questions: explore and discover. You know, does this provide value to the user? we also want to make sure that through that initial phase, that we don't alienate our audience. We have a very dedicated audience. We want to make sure that they understand the story, but at the same time that we're providing, a way for them to interact that makes sense. So, for us, it's all about just that initial kind of pitch is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's been bifurcated in two ways. Usually there's the producers that come to us and say, hey, we have this idea. We want to go to shoot a Broadway show that's planned in advance. And then there's the breaking news stories that happen where there's no plan. I'm running to a hurricane and going to capture what devastation happens, but the hurricane misses completely, so I'm trying to find it. Or it's going to the White House and trying to capture a news event and just tell that story within the same day, because by the time the next day happens, it's no longer newsworthy. So I find the latter more exciting. Being able to really iterate quickly and showcase what can be done with 360 cameras. And then one of the things that I love to do is give something for the on-air team. So take a little Insta360 1R and just put it on a pole and create a fake drone shot in a place where there's not exactly, there's such a big crowd. I did this in Guatemala and Mexico, following the caravan of migrants. It was illegal to fly drones, but I created a fake drone shot with 360 cameras that could go on air. So I find, what I find exciting is just being really creative with the tools and seeing how far I could stretch a 360 camera.
Sure. Yuliya?
Our process is I feel like it's a fairly organic flow. We have a team of editors who work together. I mean, we're a fairly small team that have specialized in immersive storytelling for a number of years, but we all come from backgrounds of working in different platforms, different mediums, and doing the reporting as well as the production. So I think, pulling ideas out of the news cycle and trying to identify the stories that are working well comes from this experience of working in different types of stories ourselves. We collaborate with other desks. Sometimes we do the reporting within our team, but often it's also a newsroom-wide collaboration. And then we have like a list that we've been using to identify the stories that are going to work well. We look for stories that, and not every story is going to work in this format. In fact, most probably don't. So we're actually more and more over the last few years becoming fairly selective with the stories that we select to show in this very unique, but also very production intensive format. So we look for something where, showing sky, oh my goodness, I am apparently not a good video presenter. Showing scale and height and speed, or skite, as I just coined it. Where it's
I like that.
Yeah, skite, our term music. Stories that require visceral connection. I work in the graphics department. The immersive team sits in the graphics department. We do a lot of graphical and just infographical storytelling. So we choose something that benefits from showing a subject in space for multiple dimensions, rather than just something that's explained easier in 2D, and something that you can explore in space, rather than getting as a single image.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that a little bit more, about sort of like the collaboration and the workflow piece, because I think when we approach things, there's sort of the quick turnaround. How are we just changing workflow in newsrooms and thinking about building 3D objects on kind of a graphics level, and then how are we thinking about stories in the longer term and how things live in this kind of environment? So I like what you're saying about collaboration. Do you have sort of ways that you would tell newsrooms or even other organizations to think about things in that way a little better than they might be doing now?
We've done a big effort when we started working on AR of reaching out to different desks and reaching out to folks who might be more visually inclined or are thinking about the visual approaches more in those desks, and trying to, tell them what this format is all about. It's very hard to wrap your mind around what augmented reality means. People are imagining, those giant headsets from the 90s. It's, it can be so many things. So we've been, even before we jumped into production, we've created some prototypes and just try to walk, editors who maybe are not even visual thinkers, are, writers, and, storytelling in different formats, trying to walk them through different scenarios and just trying to educate the newsroom. And, we've, as an organization, we've have such a strong emphasis on visual storytelling in general, so that we kind of have people we can touch base with who are visual thinkers in different parts of the newsroom.
Yeah. Ray, how's that worked on your side? I know you guys have taken a little bit different path to it.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Yuliya had just mentioned. Early on for us, it was a lot of show and tell. Here's what this is, here's what we can do, kind of talk through what the format can provide to a specific story. But what's been great over the past couple of years, we no longer need to do that. I mean, all of these different, folks in newsrooms that we can partner up with, whether it's local and national side, they're already starting to think through this because they've seen the examples, they've seen what works and what doesn't work. So, we no longer have to worry about the how, and worry more about, okay, the story itself. What can we do with the story? What can we do that's a bit differently that AR can provide? And one of the things for us is, definitely the different viewpoints, the different perspectives, that's great, but it is much more than that. And what we like to do is to ensure that interactivity helps drive that story. As a really good example, a piece that we did, just a couple months ago, we were brainstorming around what can we do for, something COVID related. And very similar to what several folks have done, with social distancing side of things, we wanted to do an interactive tool. Specifically, it was a game-like experience where we present the user with 5 everyday scenarios. So, we pop up, some of these selections, and you kind of look around the environment. But, that's just one example. Another one that's a little bit more robust is what we did last year for 1619, working with our reporters and with researchers, and historians from different museums. We recreated the interior of one of the first slave ships. It's a very, very powerful story. It's not one that many folks might have think could be a good fit for AR, but making sure that we provided, we treated this story with reverence. When you think about what can we do with AR that a traditional story can't provide, and being able to immerse someone within that story with the folks that we collaborated with through the research, kind of really helped kind of mold that story into something a little bit different. So those are 2 very different examples, but slightly different workflows where we didn't have to talk about what is AR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how have your audiences responded? I know, Edwin, you're working kind of more on the video 360 side of things, and then Ray and Yuliya and we're at Riot also really focused on AR. And how do you kind of train the audience to get used to looking at this kind of content and kind of expect it, and really educate them why this is interesting, why it's adding another layer to the story? Is that something that you're thinking about as you're creating these pieces? Edwin, you want to kick?
Sure. I think that for the most part, 360 video is becoming a little more well-known. People realize that if you see that kind of symbol, you can turn your phone and manipulate it. So that's not really more of the challenge. I think what we have been doing is focusing on, we still have to train reporters on looking at 360 cameras as a different type of tool. It really only creates a panorama. There's no way to force perspective, no close-ups, no medium shots. So that is something that we have to kind of train people with, but then to open up the ideas of the realm of possibilities. So for example, after post-COVID, a lot of social distancing has been happening, and the interest has been in, well, how can we get more shots with less cameras? And that's where 360 video cameras have been a really innovative solution, where you can have a live multi-camera shoot using one camera and then creating less of a risk for the crew. So that's the direction that I've been focusing on, just how can we use these innovations in ways that are for traditional media, VR headsets, phones, tablets, not just how would you say, virtual experience alone.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been, kind of experimenting with how we talk about it in stories. Do we call it out as an augmented reality piece? Do we just integrate it, a 3D object and hope that the user is, able to see that there's something different? We know that they're interacting with it. We know that there's interest there. But, does it help us to kind of have that big tentpole? And that's just been a little bit of trial and error. I think sometimes when there is a much larger story attached to it, like what Huffington Post did with the Stonewall project last year, where you're really kind of hearing the stories of individual people, and you're able to sort of take yourself through an experience that you want to know is something larger. Something like we did just a couple of, I guess maybe a month ago, we had a big glossary in Yahoo Life that includes a lot of objects that people before the pandemic or at the beginning of the pandemic didn't quite know exactly what they looked like, a ventilator and things like that. How can you pull that up in your space and get a closer look at it, which is something that we didn't feel needed necessarily a whole additional treatment telling people that it was augmented reality, but you're able to just see that object closer up in 3D and really experience it. So I think there's, definitely just a little bit of trial and error with all of these things. Ray, Yuliya, if you had experience with that.
Yeah, I think our voyage has been very similar to yours. We've started out by making these kind of bespoke pieces that, we would call out in the beginning that it's augmented reality. A lot of explanation went on before you even, a lot of just throat clearing before you got into the article itself. And it was definitely a very unique experience. Even the background of the article was kind of semi-translucent and let you know that you're in this different kind of story. And we would have what we called at the time kind of like the fallback mode, where we gave you an alternate WebGL experience for those who weren't able to experience AR. And
right.
I think we've come to a conclusion that it's just, it required a lot of our readers very early on. And we slowly migrated to a model where, especially, I don't know if any of you have seen the moon landing experience or the social distancing piece. We've started working more on stories that start out as an interactive WebGL experience or even a regular traditional article. And as you get to the moment where AR is beneficial, a window opens for you. And so you can step into it or you can choose not to. And it becomes this much more organic way of using AR for what it's really good for and using other modes of visual storytelling for what they are the strongest at.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I'd like to add from our perspective is when we first started creating AR stories, we did notice that engagement was dropping pretty quickly, but we took that on ourselves as a challenge in the sense of it's our fault. It's not that folks don't necessarily understand what the technology is, but we're not guiding them, especially when they're new users. They have no idea what this is, and obviously that narrative has changed. But even once they're within the experience, that is very, very key for us. And one of our first pieces, actually was the first one we published last year. I'd like to say it was kind of it didn't do too well, but we learned quite a bit from it. And when you think about the user experience design, the user flow, and the best way I describe it is, for the very first one, we had a bicycle wheel without the rim. The home screen was the hub, and you could connect and go through all these different experiences, but you had to go back and forth. There was a lot of back and forth, and that was pretty frustrating. So there was no opportunity for the user to kind of seamlessly go into another part of the story. So recognizing what had failed then, we adapted onto our second project, which was the Oscars piece, and we attached the rim. So from there, the user could go from the hub, follow a spoke to a story, go straight to another particular story and back. So from a user experience design perspective, we quickly realized that, okay, it's our fault that folks aren't engaging with this content, and we were able to figure it out. But that is just one example.
I think for me, my learning really aha moment came the day after actually the inauguration of Trump. We I, pretty much stayed up really late at night and made sure that we went to the Women's March. And so I put a 360 camera literally 10 feet from the stage at the first Women's March in DC. That live stream to Facebook, which at the time only would allow like broadcasters like NBC to do live 360 streaming. That got 3.5 million views that day. Why? Because everybody was interested in this story at that time. It was really amazing and mind-blowing. But when people clicked on it and it turned their phone, it started moving, and they were shocked because they hadn't seen that kind of experience before. So what I discovered was that the power of live streaming 360 video content and the uses for that.
Great. I know we've talked a little bit about pain points just kind of in the course of this conversation, but I'm curious to know a little more about, what are the stumbling blocks? What have they been for you? How have you kind of overcome some of those? And what do you see going forward? I think this last few weeks has really put a lot of that into perspective, both the benefits of working in this space, being able to do so much of this immersive technology remotely, and then also the challenges of turning things around very quickly when news is breaking. So I wanted to dive into that a little bit before we break for questions.
This type of content does take some time. Where we've been fortunate is, there have been a couple of opportunities here and there when it comes to, near breaking news type content. And the best example that I could provide is what my team had done last year for the Notre Dame Cathedral. I was actually out on PTO, and they were able to rally pretty quickly and build a project within about 8 hours and publish it fairly quickly and provide kind of a unique perspective as far as what the actual story was. And that was just based on the collaboration with the newsroom, finding someone who could help get the information, the images, and actually do the audio as well. But what ends up happening is we've got a series of tools and templates. So, scripts that we can kind of leverage. So we're able to put the content together pretty quickly. But what does take time, though, is crafting that story. We always want to make sure that, there is a nice seamless flow, from the beginning, middle to the end. And at the same time, provide an opportunity for a user to come back and possibly see what else that they might have missed. So, those are the challenges. I mean, it is creating the content, especially since it is very much 3D heavy. And we've been using photogrammetry as a way to get us a step forward, but even those can take some time for some really good results. So we're getting quicker, which is fantastic. We do understand the entire workflow. We're fortunate that, our partners within the editorial rooms understand, what the capabilities are. But, something in near real time, that's going to take some time. But, we're doing as best we can with what we got.
Yeah, I mean, we've done, at the Times, we've done a number of breaking news stories as well. And to be honest, our team's burned out after each and every try, especially when we were doing it in 2018. Photogrammetry has come a long way. I feel like every 6 months there's a new innovation. But at the time, just producing the assets to put in, I mean, not to mention the storytelling, that's a separate issue, but just producing the assets that are going to go into, your space was a huge challenge. And I think that besides creating a better pipeline, which we have, I think, perfected and continue to innovate on over the years, just seeing the technology change and evolve where things are becoming easier. When we started out with breaking news, we were going into photogrammetry models and reducing them so that they could be supported on a mobile device virtually manually, sitting in 3D, in 3D software. All the people on our team are in some way, working in 3D. And, we've gotten to the point where some of those processes are automated just because of technological advances. And, I can't wait to see what advances are going to lift the workload. But I think at the moment, I think it is a really tall order to publish breaking news AR.
It's really tough. And I think, I think it's easy to overthink things and want to do things that are more complicated maybe than they need to be to turn them around because we have this technology at our fingertips. And then just the sheer process, I think, has not gotten quite to that, quick turnaround that, hopefully, in the next 6 months. It's improving so fast that it's hard to say. But
to give a quick example, in 2015, when we started 360 video, we stitched by hand in After Effects, and anyone familiar with the field will just go, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
We perfected every seam, and it was just painstaking. I mean, there was one project we stayed up for 3 nights in a row as a team, and then 6 months later, Google Jump came out, and all those skills that we perfected just went out the window. and I'm glad they did. I'll never look back. But
oh God, no more stitching.
Yeah.
Oh man, I knew stitching would be a solved problem, and it was just a pain point that was just waiting to be solved. But yeah, stitching 6-12 GoPros is no fun.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No fun.
Or decimation of a 3D model.
Right. I mean, we've been able to train a lot of folks in the newsroom now who did not have experience on this stuff before. And I think that's also made things much quicker. I think just having more people who know about this, even in a sort of light tangential way, even if they're not at the point of developing things themselves, has been a huge help as well. More people to bounce things off of, more people to QA projects who know what they're looking at, before things go out into the world, I think has been a huge benefit on this stuff as well, at least on our side. Edwin, you're kind of working on, a little bit on your own on some of these projects. Can you talk a little bit about what that's been like and
I'm
you're
a developer / filmmaker at heart. So I like to code and create apps as well as edit and also tell stories. So that's just fun for me. But where I see that, like for the future, that's where I want to be, where the puck is going to be. And I think, and where I'm trying to push the organizations is that right now, this post-COVID world, VR has gotten to the point where we can take a VR world and render it in real time. So I could literally walking through the pyramids in real time and transport a real person into a VR world. That I think is really exciting to me. I want to create more of that kind of crazy content because that's mind-blowing, because it doesn't require a large crew.
Great. Sure. Okay. I think we're ready for some questions. So throw them at us.
Hi. Yes. Great discussion so far. You talked a bit about the technical challenges of producing fast turnaround XR journalism, but do you think the medium lends itself better to features over breaking news in general?
I mean, right now I think it does. Same as with 360 video, when technology catches up, I think breaking news will be, and as Laura mentioned, the more people you can pull into it, the more the skill sets, technology is more accessible, the skill sets are more accessible. It'll be a better breaking news medium.
Yeah, echoing Yuliya, absolutely. In the near term, it's working on these larger kind of tentpole pieces that we've planned, months out in advance. We've got, multi-week, development schedules. That being able to pivot over to a breaking news piece is pretty difficult, but it's something that we're excited to follow. And, for sure, we do see opportunities in there. We try to hit them every so often, but the workflow right now is so difficult to try to pivot as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I think we're getting closer as far as including 3D objects on a more regular basis. I wouldn't necessarily call it breaking, but there's some place in between adding immersive elements to a story and creating a large tentpole story-driven piece that I think we're getting much closer to.
Yeah, this is not my area of expertise, but I have seen technologies like, the eighth wall, where you can have an app that will continually be updated so that you could add stories to it. And I think that's where I see the future of these kinds of AR breaking news, where elements and pieces are grown inside of an existing story because it's web-based rather than app download-based.
Yep.
Cool. And one more question. What's the most surprising lessons that you've learned doing immersive journalism? What surprised you most about?
I like that question.
We can't get too crazy with new ideas on user experience design. I mean, it's really keeping it simple, leveraging what folks are familiar with. I mean, early on, we were trying to do brand new crazy things that just did not work. And once you start to incorporate, let's say gallery-like carousels, to advance a story, when you use annotations to pop up photos and videos. I mean, very familiar things folks do engage with. They understand it at a glance. And what we've noticed has been stronger engagement, which has been fantastic. So I would say, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it did kind of catch us off guard as we've been developing more and more AR content.
I would say, oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah. I was going to say, for us, I think every time we launch something, I'm able to kind of imagine what the other layer, like what the next element would be that we weren't able to include. And I think that's been really kind of fascinating and interesting, and then pushed us to think about what's the next tech hurdle to overcome to do that, whether it's like a different level of interactivity or really anything. But, we think we have it. We think we have something really great, and we do. But then there's always more. There's always more that you can do, and there's always more to sort of figure out as far as this puzzle and the tools that we now have to play with. So.
My first surprise is always that it worked, because with all the amazing minds and and the technical power behind it, it's still every new experience, every new tiny feature feels like you're like holding it by shoestrings. But really the thing that surprised me that I didn't expect was that I personally, and people that we have asked to use our experiences that we were able to question, how the emotional connection that was there, visceral experience and emotional connection are like these, words that kind of are kicked around in the industry. And I do feel the stories where we chose to use this medium have often been more powerful on an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the biggest surprise has been like when we're technologists, we love technology, we love gadgets, we love toys, but stripping all the production value away. I think a speaker earlier was alluding to this. Just the story, bringing a real story that touches people to the core. That's where you see the real jump and spike in viewers. And I think that's where all of us have something in common. We're trying to use different hammers and tools and nails to tell a story that's going to touch the heart of our viewers. And as creatives, that's the pleasure that you get from creating content.
Absolutely. Any other questions for us, or should we wrap up?
I think we're out of time, but discussion. Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you very much. This was great.
Thank you all.
Cheers.